are some historical mysteries experts can't solve, and do you think you can solve them? Like the ghost ship of the Mary Celeste. On December 4th, 1872, a British-American ship called the Mary Celeste was found abandoned and floating in the Atlantic Ocean, all by itself. It was found to be perfectly seaworthy and with its cargo fully intact, except for a lifeboat which had appeared to have been boarded in an ordinary fashion. But why? We may never know because no one on board was ever heard from again. The Mary Celeste sailed from New York bound for Genoa, Italy in November 1872, and the ship was manned by Captain Benjamin Briggs and 7 crew members, including Briggs and his wife and their 2-year-old daughter. Supplies on board were set to last for 6 months, and there were luxurious items on board including a sewing machine and an upright piano. Historians and commentators generally agree that to abandon such a worthy ship, some extraordinary and alarming circumstances might have been arisen. However, the last entry on the ship's daily log reveals nothing unusual. In fact, everything from the inside all appeared to be in order. Conspiracy theories over the years have included mutiny, pirate attacks, and even a giant octopus or a sea monster attack, but whatever the cause was behind this ghost ship still remains unsolved. What do you think happened? Including the Eerie Lady of the Dunes, on July 26, 1974, 12-year-old Leslie Metcalf was returning from the beach with her family in Provincetown, Massachusetts. A local dog had followed them, and when it took off barking, Leslie broke away from her parents and started to go after it. In the dunes of Race Point Beach, a mile east of a ranger station, Leslie found the decomposing body of a naked woman. The woman was around 5'6", weighing about 145 pounds, and was between the age of 20 and 40 years old. She was lying on one side of the beach towel with her head resting on a pair of jeans and a blue bandana. It was estimated that the body had been lying there for anywhere from 10 days to 3 weeks before being discovered. The left side of her head was crushed and she had almost been completely decapitated. With no weapons found near her, it was believed that the military entrenching tool was used to almost, take off her head. Her hands were removed, probably to conceal the woman's identity through fingerprints, although due to the horrific state of the body, authorities believed that the woman was killed. With no signs of struggle at the time, authorities believed that the unidentified victim would have known her killer, as the only signs of evidence were the size 10 footprints that indicated a heavy person running away. Surprisingly that it was still there after 10 days to 3 weeks. Provincetown Police Chief Jimmy Meade say that the killer likely drove the victim to the dune in a 4-wheel drive sand vehicle to sunbathe. Despite using bloodhounds and missing persons bulletins, scouring the registers of local lodgings, and looking into anyone who had a permit to bring their vehicle onto the beach, the police found nothing. In 2019, Provincetown local Margie Childs reflected on the case, saying the fact that no one could identify the Lady of the Dunes in the tight-knit community is very strange, and almost 50 years later, the victim is known as the Lady of the Dunes still remains unidentified. What do you think happened to her? Project Blue Book was the codename of the study of the unidentified flying objects run by the US Air Force from March of 1947 to December 1969. The project was located in the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio, USA, and it was initially designed by Captain Edward J. Ruppelt, and he was inspired by the other projects alike. Project Book's goals were to determine if UAPs were a threat to national security and to analyze UFO-related data. There were thousands of reports that they had analyzed, researched, investigated, and documented, but they thought it would be unlikely to study UFOs and it wouldn't lead anywhere to any major specific scientific breaks, so the US government decided to terminate the project in 1969 for several reasons. The first reason for the project's termination was that there are no UAPs that have been investigated, reported, or evaluated displayed a threat to national security. Second, there was no UAPs discovered that demonstrated a truly unknown or unidentified non-human technological advancement beyond that we already know. And finally, there was no evidence that indicated any of the sightings that were reported as unidentified or extraterrestrial. The project received a lot of backlash from the government, who believed that the speculation and theories surrounding UAPs should be debunked and not even researched. They reasoned that every sighting that had been reported was just people mistaking natural phenomena or training, and the project was taking a lot of money and was not providing any useful information, and the financial loss that this project became mixed with the doubt that UAPs even existed. So they pushed the government to decide that the Project Blue Book was unnecessary, so they shut it down. Project Blue Book has since made itself a very well-known pop culture thing, with being mentioned in TV shows and UAP enthusiasts alike. It was one of the most popular US government research projects centered around UAPs, so it makes sense that it gained so much, traction and popularity popularity, but have you ever heard of Project Blue Book, and what do you think about it? From 1917 to 1928, over 500,000 people were afflicted with a ghastly condition that could be part of the plotline of a horror film. The victims, very much alive and conscious, found themselves in an inexplicably frozen state, and their static bodies prisons for their minds. Encephalitis lethargica is, aka the sleeping sickness, first appeared in Europe and quickly spread throughout the world, reaching epidemic levels in North America, Europe, and India by 1919. About a third of those stricken with the illness had passed away, and of the survivors, nearly half eventually found themselves unable to physically interact with the world around them, all while fully aware of their surroundings. Though occasionally capable of limited speech, eye motion, and even laughter, they generally appeared as living statues, totally motionless for hours, days, weeks, or years. The cause is still unknown, but one theory is brain inflammation triggered by a rare strain of streptococcus and the bacteria responsible for many sore throats each year. That's really scary. Scientists' best guess is that the bacteria mutated, provoking the immune system to attack the brain, leaving the victim helpless. None of this explains why the illness disappeared only to resurface sporadically, let it be in the Europes in 1950s or in China 10 years ago when a 12-year-old girl was hospitalized for 5 weeks with the disease. Are such occurrences the new normal, or are there any signs that EL could be planning something bigger any day? A 2004 analysis of 20 patients with symptoms remarkably similar to the condition that happened concluded that whatever allied them is still prevalent, and as such history, so-called sleeping sickness remains the stuff of nightmares. What do you think? Although, I should add, there is still a fortunate circumstance in the US right now where there's a lot of illegal substances that making people looking sleepy. Maybe they correlate? Who knows? Do the Pollock sisters prove reincarnation? What do you think? Today, 24% of Americans believe in reincarnation. Although scientists state otherwise, every once in a while an unsolved mystery comes around that is so compelling and otherwise unexplainable that it gives scientists a pause. And that is what we have in the story of the Pollock sisters. In 1957, two young English sisters, Joanna Pollock, 11, and Jacqueline Pollock, 6, died in a tragic car accident. It was later discovered that the driver, a local woman who was under the influence of a number of illegal substances, had intentionally hit 3 children after forcibly separating from her own kids. The case later made headlines throughout Britain, with the woman eventually taken to a psychiatric hospital, as 1 year later the mother, who lost her children, gave birth to twins, Jillian and Jennifer. When the twins were old enough to talk, they began identifying and requesting toys that had belonged to their dead sisters without even knowing the names, and even knowing the names of the dead sisters' toys, pointing out landmarks only their dead sisters would have known, like the school they used to go to, and even panicking when they see cars idling, even saying to their mom, "That car is coming to get us." That's very specific. After the twins turned 5, these incidents became less frequent, and the girls went on to lead normal lives. While the twins lost their memories of the accident entirely, Jillian later recalled experiencing visions of herself playing in a sandpit at home in Wickham, while Jillian had never been to Wickham, and she was actually able to describe perfectly the house and the garden that matched the home that Joanna had once lived with her parents at 4 years old. Still, the story of the Pollock sisters made its way to Dr. Ian Stevenson, who was born in 1918 and died in 2007, a psychologist who studied reincarnation, and after studying thousands of supposed cases, Dr. Stevenson wrote a book telling of the 14 he believed to have been real, including of the Pollock sisters. The United States had reportedly conducted covert operations to recover unidentified flying objects, UFOs, revealing the existence of a secret CIA team tasked with this mission. At least 9 non-human crafts have been collected by this clandestine group, shedding light on the government efforts to retrieve and study these mysterious aerial phenomena. In contrast, a NASA report released recently stated that there is no evidence supporting extraterrestrial origins of UFOs, even though there was a 16-member expert team emphasizing the majority of UAP's observations can be attributed to known phenomena or occurrences, but the report also highlighted challenges in studying UAPs. NASA Administrator Bill Nelson acknowledged that the need of further research is emphasizing that there is still much to learn about these mysterious phenomena that we see, as these revelations surrounding the secret CIA team's retrieval missions, advanced detection technology, and contrasting perspectives within government agencies contributing to the ongoing intrigue and mystery around UFOs and UAPs. The Big Grey Man is an inhuman creature that is said to haunt the summit and passes the second highest peak in Scotland, Ben Macdui. And like the Yeti of the Himalayas and Bigfoot, as we know, the Sasquatch of the American Pacific Northwest, the Big Grey Man has been seen by very few eyewitnesses. But what makes him so frightening? Well, apparently he resembles that of a bear, but also he doesn't look like a bear. Apparently he's over 10 feet tall and human-like, with short hair, broad shoulders, and long arms, kind of like Slender Man. Nearly all reports of the sightings, including sounds of gravel crunching beneath the footfalls. Scientists haven't been able to come up with an explanation for the sightings and the accompanying sounds, maybe because there's so few eyewitnesses. Although psychologists have proposed that those who have seen him may have been in a state of physical and mental anguish as they've been, isolated, wandering around for a long time. The unexplained Phoenix lights on March 13, 1997 is a string of 5 lights in a V formation appeared in the sky above Phoenix, Arizona. The National UFO Reporting Center reported that the first call about the lights came at around 8:16 p.m. from a retired police officer in Arizona, which about 2 hours north of Phoenix. After that, the National UFO Reporting Center began receiving a slew of calls all over, suggesting that the lights were moving in a southeastern direction. There were more than 700 allegations and witnesses who saw these lights, including pilots, police officers, and military officials. Basically, everybody and their mama saw this light. However, the large number of witnesses describing the lights as a part of a singular masked aircraft made no sense, as it made no noise. And around 10 p.m., a second set of as many of 9 lights appeared in the sky. A laser printer technician named Dana Valentine claims to have witnessed the craft from his yard in Phoenix, and he even said we could see the outline of the mast behind the lights, but you couldn't actually see the mast, he reported. It was like a gray distortion in the sky, wavy, and they don't know exactly what it was. Either way, the government never interviewed even one person to this day or explained the Phoenix lights, and as it remains a mystery. The Roswell Incident is generously and fairly credited as a pivoting point for the culture surrounding aerial phenomena today. In 1947, an object crash landed in ranchland Roswell, New Mexico, and Mac Brazel and his son were driving across their land when they came across this wreckage. Brazel described the scene as a large area of bright wreckage made of rubber stripes, tinfoil, and rather tough paper and sticks. Perplexed by the strange assortments of items, and maybe it could have been like a weird art project from a college kid, they just figured out to go to the police anyway. And the object that had crashed had several crash sightings in general, as people have claimed to have seen the object crash in different locations, and they saw a small humanoid creature running and scurrying away from the ship, running away from the wreckage, as the news worked itself up from the chain command, eventually reaching to intelligent officers. As they traveled to the crash site and retrieved remainder of the wreckage, they made a public statement for the newspapers, and either way, they tried to dismiss that it ever happened. Only days later, the news ran rampant with flying saucer headlines, and the Air Force released a statement claiming that the object was merely a weather balloon. But in 1978, Marcel, one of the investigators, revealed that the claim of it being a weather balloon was also a hoax meant to distract the public, and he speculated that the debris origin was not of this world, and public speculations exploded hundreds of theories to what it could have been that day. And so, to this day, the Air Force continues to deny that it was a debris of extraterrestrial, but new theories regarding the Roswell incident continues to be talked about, making it one, if not most, of the popular UFO sightings to date. And finally, the bizarre deaths of the Dyatlov Pass. On the night of February 1st, 1959, 9 hikers died mysteriously in the mountains of what we know now in Russia. On the night of the incident, the group had set up a camp on a slope enjoying dinner and got ready for bed, but they never returned home. On February 26th, a search party found the hikers abandoned their tent, which had been ripped open from the inside. Surrounding the area were footprints left by the group, some wearing socks, some wearing a single shoe, some barefoot, all of which followed the edge of the forest that was nearby. 2 bodies were found there, shoeless, only wearing underwear. Initially, it was believed that they died by hypothermia, but medical examiners took a look, and the body, as well as the 7 others that were discovered over the months, disproved that theory. One body had evidence of blunt force trauma as a result of brutal harm, while another body had 3rd-degree burns. One had been vomiting blood, and the other one was missing a tongue. Just a lot of stuff that was going on. The morbid theories that floated, including the KGB interference, illegal substance overdose, and UFOs, of course, gravity anomalies, and the Yeti, but the real phenomena called the infrasound, in which the wind interacts with the topography to create a barely audible hum that can be induced powerful feelings of nausea, pain, dread, chills, nervousness, raised heart rate, and breathing difficulties. I don't know what it could be. It could be the wind, it could have been the KGB, but still, the true cause of the death of these adventurers still remains unsolved. With all these tales, what do you think seems reasonable, and what do you feel like could have been solved? Still, these mysteries remain in history. And speaking of history, we're done. That's it. Thank you for joining me. Be sure to like and subscribe. My name is Jess, and I wish you all the best. Bye.